The massive space station called Arcanus Prime floated in the void like a silver ring around a dying star. Inside its great halls, representatives from 47 different species gathered for their monthly council meeting. They had done this for 10,000 years without interruption. Peace was their greatest achievement, and they protected it with careful rules and endless patience. Speaker Velshara stood at the center of the circular chamber. Her body was made of living crystal that caught the light and scattered it in beautiful patterns across the walls. She had led these meetings for 3,000 years, and in all that time, no one had ever broken the sacred protocols of entry. Until today. The alarm started as a low hum that grew into a screaming wail. Security screens flashed red across every surface. Velshara's crystal body flickered with alarm as she accessed the station's sensors. What she saw made no sense. Ships, dozens of them. They had appeared in restricted space without any warning, without any permission, without using the proper jump gates. The vessels were crude compared to council ships, built from heavy metals and burning chemical fuels that the galaxy had abandoned centuries ago. But they were here, and they should not have been able to get past even the first layer of council defenses. On the command deck of the lead ship, Admiral Sarah Chen stood with her arms crossed behind her back. Her uniform was dark gray, practical and worn from years of use. A scar ran down the left side of her face, a reminder of Earth's unification wars. Those wars had been brutal, but they had taught humanity one important lesson. Sometimes the only way to get a seat at the table was to kick down the door. All ships, hold position, Chen said calmly into her communications device. Do not fire unless fired upon. But do not back down either. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Species that communicated through sound waves shrieked in their native languages. Others flashed colors across their skin or released chemical signals into the air. The translation system struggled to keep up with the flood of panic. Impossible, shouted Ambassador Krell, a massive creature covered in thick armor plating. No species can bypass our security. Clearly one can, said another voice. It belonged to Ambassador Thessa of the Halix people, aquatic beings who sat in specialized water tanks. The question is, what do they want? Velshara raised one crystalline arm and silence fell across the chamber. She had that effect on people. When someone lived for 3,000 years, others learned to listen. Establish communication, she commanded. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed the bridge of the human ship and the woman standing at its center. Admiral Chen looked directly at the thousands of eyes watching her. Greetings, Chen said. Her voice was calm but firm. I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Fleet. We come in peace, but we come on our own terms. For 50 years, we have watched your council from a distance. We have listened to your broadcasts. We have studied your technology from the debris fields you leave behind. And we have decided it is time for humanity to take its place in the galaxy. You have no place, Krell roared. You violate every law of civilized conduct. You appear without invitation, without permission, without fear, Chen interrupted. Yes, we have seen how your council operates. You do not invite. You investigate. You do not welcome. You judge. You would have studied us for another 100 years, debating whether we were worthy of contact. We decided not to wait. Velshara studied the human carefully. There was something about this species that disturbed her, though she could not identify what. They looked fragile, soft skin, no natural armor, no claws or weapons. Yet they had built ships that could break through council security. They had learned technologies that had taken other species thousands of years to develop, and they had done it in barely a century. You speak of peace, Velshara said slowly, but you arrive with weapons armed and shields raised. You speak of taking your place, but you show no understanding of what that place should be. Tell me, Admiral Chen, what makes you think your species deserves to join the council? Chen smiled, but it was not a happy expression. With respect, Speaker, I think you misunderstand. We are not asking to join your council. We are informing you that we exist, that we are not going away, and that we expect to be treated as equals. Whether that happens within your council or outside of it is your choice to make. The chamber exploded with angry voices once again. Several ambassadors demanded that the humans be destroyed immediately. Others called for quarantine, for study, for containment. A few simply sat in shocked silence. In the back of the chamber, Dr. Marcus Webb watched the chaos with growing dread. He was the only human physically present on the station, Having arrived weeks earlier through official channels, he was a xenoanthropologist, a scientist who studied alien cultures. He had spent years convincing the council to allow him to visit, years of following their rules and protocols. And now his own people had destroyed all that careful work in a matter of minutes. Webb pushed through the crowd toward Velshara. "Please," he said urgently. "Speaker, I can explain. My people are not aggressive by nature. We are simply your people," Velshara said coldly, "have just committed an act of war against 47 civilized worlds. Do not speak to me of nature, Dr. Webb. Speak to me of consequences." But before Webb could respond, every alarm in the station began screaming at once. This was different from before. This was the sound of absolute terror, a warning that had not been heard in 8,000 years. Velshara's crystal body went completely dark. Around the chamber, ambassadors froze. Even Krell, the warrior species who feared nothing, made a low sound of distress. "What is it?" Chen demanded through the communication link. "What is happening?" Velshara's voice, when she finally spoke, sounded like breaking glass. "You have awakened them, the eldest, the Karesh, the apex predators of our galaxy. They have been sleeping for 8,000 years, waiting in the scorched zone. And your arrival, your weapons, your violence, it has called to them." "I don't understand," Chen said. "Who are the Karesh?" "They are the reason we have peace," Velshara explained, her voice hollow. "They are the reason we suppress all aggression, all military power, all thoughts of conquest. Long ago, they hunted the galaxy. They destroyed entire species just for the pleasure of the kill. When our ancestors finally surrendered, when they proved they were no longer a threat, the Karesh went to sleep. They have been sleeping ever since, waiting for a species foolish enough to show its claws again." The display screens showed something emerging from the darkness of space. It was massive, larger than any ship in the human fleet. Its surface seemed to be alive, pulsing with organic tissue wrapped around mechanical components. It did not look built. It looked grown. "And now," Velshara continued, "because of your pride, because of your weapons, because you could not simply wait and follow our rules, they are awake, and they are hungry." The Karesh ship powered up weapons that looked like biological organs opening to reveal glowing cores, a message broadcast across all frequencies, in a language that bypassed translation and spoke directly to the primitive fear centers of every brain. New scent detected. Warrior species identified. Hunting protocols engaged. Admiral Chen stared at the massive predator ship approaching her fleet. Around her, the bridge crew waited for orders. She had come here to prove that humanity deserved respect. She had come here to show strength. She had not come here to start a war with monsters from the galaxy's nightmares. But as she watched the Karesh ship move closer, Sarah Chen made a decision that would define humanity's future. She did not order retreat. She did not ask the council for help. She simply turned to her weapons officer and said the words that every human learned in childhood. "All ships, battle stations, show them what humans do when something tries to hunt us." The war for humanity's survival had begun. The emergency council session lasted for 16 hours without break. Velshara stood at the center while holographic displays showed the Karesh ship holding position near human space. It had not attacked yet, but everyone knew that was only a matter of time. Admiral Chen had pulled her fleet back to a defensive position, but she refused to leave the system entirely. Her ships formed a wall between Earth and the ancient predator. It was a brave gesture, but everyone in the council knew it was also meaningless. The Karesh had destroyed civilizations far more advanced than humanity. "We must tell them the truth," said Ambassador Thessa from her water tank. Her voice bubbled and clicked, translated by machines into words the others could understand. "The humans deserve to know what they have awakened. They deserve nothing but exile," Krell growled. "They broke our laws. They endangered us all. Let them face the consequences alone." Dr. Marcus Webb stood at the edge of the council floor, not quite a member but no longer entirely an outsider. "If you have information that can help my people survive, you must share it. Keeping secrets now will only ensure more deaths." Velshara was silent for a long moment. Her crystal body pulsed with colors that others could not interpret, memories of ancient horrors that she alone still carried. Finally, she spoke. "Very well. Dr. Webb, what I am about to tell you is known only to the oldest members of each species. It is the foundation of everything the Council represents. It is the reason we exist at all." She gestured, and the holographic displays changed. They showed images from thousands of years ago. Great fleets burning in space, planets stripped of all life, species driven to extinction. And at the center of it all were the Karesh. 12,000 years ago, Velshara began, the galaxy was very different. There was no council. There was no peace. Every species expanded, conquered, fought for resources and territory. We thought this was natural. We thought this was how intelligent life behaved. The images showed massive organic ships, similar to the one now waiting in space. They moved through star systems like wolves through a forest. Then the Karesh came. We do not know where they originated. Perhaps they evolved in the depths of space itself. Perhaps they were created by some ancient civilization as weapons. It does not matter. What matters is what they did. More images. Cities burning, populations fleeing, desperate last stands that ended in slaughter. They did not want our territory. They did not want our resources. They wanted us, not as slaves or servants, but as prey. The Karesh are hunters at their core. They exist to find the strongest species in the galaxy and break them, to prove they are the apex predators of all creation. Webb felt sick. How did you survive? We surrendered, Velshara said simply. Not just in battle, but in spirit. The 47 species you see in this council, we are the ones who gave up completely. We destroyed our weapons. We altered our own genetics to remove aggressive tendencies. We rebuilt our entire civilizations around peace, around harmony, around never ever giving the Karesh a reason to hunt us again. And it worked? Webb asked. It worked. 8,000 years ago, the Karesh grew bored with us. We were no longer challenging prey. We were no longer worth hunting. So they went to sleep in the scorched zone, the region of space they claimed as their territory. They left automated systems to watch us, to ensure we stayed broken. And we did. For 8,000 years, every species in this council has lived in a cage we pretend is freedom. The revelation hit Webb like a physical blow. You are not peaceful by nature. You are peaceful because you are terrified. Yes, Velshara said. And now your species, with your weapons and your pride and your refusal to be afraid, has reminded the Karesh that there is still prey worth hunting. On the bridge of her flagship, Admiral Chen listened to this history through an encrypted communication link. Dr. Webb had convinced Velshara to share the information, though most of the council had protested. Now Chen understood why they were so angry at humanity's arrival. So what do they want? Chen asked. Are these Karesh? Are they coming to destroy us? Worse, Velshara replied. They are coming to hunt you, to test you, to see if you are worthy of their attention. If you fight well, they will be pleased. They will take their time breaking you. If you fight poorly, they will be disappointed and simply erase your species quickly. Chen looked around at her bridge crew. They were all young, in their 20s and 30s. They had grown up hearing stories about Earth's unification wars, about humanity's struggle to survive and prosper. They had joined the military to protect their species, to explore the stars, to face whatever challenges waited out there. None of them had expected this. What happened to the species who fought back? Chen asked quietly. There was a long pause. Then Velshara answered, There are no species who fought back. Everyone who tried was exterminated. The Karesh do not accept defiance. They do not negotiate. They hunt until their prey is dead or broken. Chen disconnected the communication and sat down in her command chair. Around her, the bridge was silent. Everyone had heard the conversation. Admiral, her first officer said carefully, we could run, take the fleet back to Earth, evacuate our colonies, hide in the outer rim. Maybe they would not follow. They would follow, Chen said. You heard the speaker. The Karesh exist to hunt. We have already been marked. Running just means we die tired. Then what do we do? Chen was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled, and it was the same cold smile she had worn when declaring humanity's presence to the council. We do what humans have always done. We survive, we adapt. We find a way to win even when everyone says it is impossible. Against predators who have never been defeated, against monsters who destroyed civilizations more advanced than ours. Yes, Chen said simply, because we are not like the other species in this galaxy. We were not broken by the Karesh. We do not carry 8,000 years of genetic trauma telling us to surrender. We only know one thing. Never, ever give up. She stood and walked to the view screen showing the massive Karesh ship in the distance. Send a message to Earth. Tell them everything we have learned. Tell them to prepare for war. And tell them, She paused. Tell them that humanity has finally found an enemy worthy of our attention. Back on Arcanus Prime, the Council continued its emergency session. The vote was called What to Do About the Human Problem. 39 species voted to exile humanity, to declare them outside Council protection, to let the Karesh have them as appeasement. But 8 species voted differently. Ambassador Thessa of the Halleck spoke for them all. For 8,000 years we have been cowards. We have told ourselves it was wisdom. We have called our fear peace. But watching these humans refuse to bow, refuse to surrender, refuse to accept that some enemies cannot be fought, it reminds us of what we used to be, what we could be again. You would doom us all, Krell shouted. The Karesh will see this as defiance from the entire council. Good, Thessa replied. Let them. The humans are right about one thing. You cannot have true peace while living in fear. You cannot claim to be civilized while hiding from monsters. If the Karesh want to hunt, then perhaps it is time we remembered how to fight. The vote stood. 8 species openly supporting humanity, 39 demanding their exile, and the council more divided than it had been in millennia. Velshara looked at the chaos she had dedicated 3,000 years to preventing. Everything was falling apart. The perfect peace was broken. And somewhere deep inside her crystal heart, in a place she had thought long dead, she felt something stirring. It might have been fear, or it might have been hope. In the scorched zone, more Karish ships began to wake up. Their long sleep was ending. The galaxy had given them new prey, and they were very, very hungry. The hunt was about to begin. The Karesh hunter ships arrived at Council Outpost Sigma 7 without warning. There were 3 of them, each one smaller than the massive ship that had first awakened but still larger than anything in the human fleet. They moved through space like living things, pulsing and flowing rather than simply flying. The outpost had defenses, of course. Every council station did, even though they had not been used in combat for thousands of years. Automated weapons powered up, shields activated, and distress signals were sent to nearby fleets. It took the Karesh 47 seconds to destroy everything. The outposts. Weapons fire simply disappeared into organic tissue that absorbed energy like a sponge. The shields were torn apart by weapons that seemed to warp space itself. And when the station finally broke apart, the Karesh ships moved through the debris field, scanning and analyzing, learning about their prey. Then they broadcast a message across all council frequencies. It was not translated. It did not need to be. Every species heard it in their own language, felt it in their bones, knew it in their genetic memory. We come for the warriors. Send them forward. Admiral Chen watched the footage of the destroyed outpost and felt ice in her stomach. 47 seconds. That was all it had taken. Her fleet had been preparing for battle, running simulations, training crews. But watching the casual ease with which the Karesh had swept aside council defenses made her realize how unprepared they truly were. We cannot win this fight, her first officer said quietly. They were alone in her ready room, speaking freely. Admiral, we need to be realistic. 3 of their ships destroyed a defended station in less than a minute. They have thousands of ships waking up in the scorched zone. We have 200 vessels total, and most of those are science ships and transports, not warships. Chen did not respond immediately. She looked at the tactical display showing the Karesh positions, the council fleet movements, and her own ships holding the line near human space. You are right, she finally said. We cannot win. Not in a straight fight, not with the resources we have now. Then we should evacuate, fall back to Earth, prepare defenses there. No. Chen's voice was firm. Because you are thinking like a council species. You are thinking about defense, about survival, about minimizing losses. The Karesh expect that. They have been hunting species like that for millions of years. They know how to break prey that thinks defensively. Then what do? Chen smiled. We think like humans. We do not fight the battle they want us to fight. We make them fight our battle instead. 3 days later, Admiral Chen stood before the 8 council species who had voted to support humanity. The meeting was held on a neutral station, heavily guarded. The 39 species who had voted for exile were not invited. Thank you for coming, Chen said. I know this decision has cost each of you politically. Ambassador Thessa, I understand your government has called for your arrest. Ambassador Krell, your military command has been suspended. The others face similar consequences. You could have stayed silent, stayed safe, but you chose to stand with us instead. We chose to remember what we used to be, Thessa said. Her voice bubbled from her water tank. Before the Karesh broke us. Before we surrendered our warrior spirits. Some of us are old enough to carry genetic memories of those times. We want to see if we can reclaim them. Chen nodded. Then I will be honest with you. We cannot defeat the Karesh in open battle. They are too advanced, too numerous, too experienced. But we can hurt them. We can make them bleed. And if we hurt them badly enough, maybe they will decide we are not worth hunting. How? Krell demanded. His armor plating gleamed under the station's lights. What strategy do you have that 8,000 years of Council history does not? Offense, Chen said simply. The Council has spent millennia thinking about defense, about protecting what you have. The Karesh expect that. They expect prey to hide, to build walls, to wait for the predator to come. So we do the opposite. We take the fight to them. She brought up a holographic map of the scorched zone. According to the data Dr. Webb recovered from Council archives, the Karesh breed their hunter ships in specific worlds deep in their territory. Living ships need living resources. They need biomass, genetic material, nutrients. If we can destroy those breeding worlds, we can limit their ability to grow their fleet. That is insane, one of the other ambassadors said. The scorched zone is their territory. Going there would be suicide. Staying here is also suicide, Chen replied. Just slower. At least my way, we hurt them first. The debate lasted for hours, but in the end the 8 species agreed. They would commit their fleets to the attack. It would not be many ships, maybe 3,000 total, against the thousands more the Karesh were waking up. But it was something. Dr. Marcus Webb worked frantically in the Council archives, pulling up every piece of data about the Karesh that the frightened species had hidden away. Most of it was incomplete, corrupted by time and fear, but slowly a picture emerged. The Karesh were not simply predators. They were genetic collectors. Every species they hunted, they studied. Every prey they consumed, they incorporated into themselves. They had been building a library of galactic life for millions of years, taking the best traits from each species and adding it to their own biology. It was brilliant and horrible at the same time. Webb realized that the Council species had been right to fear them, but wrong about how to survive. You could not hide from something that saw you as a resource to be collected. You could only make yourself too expensive to acquire. He sent his findings to Admiral Chen. She read them and immediately understood the implications. They see us as a commodity, she said during the final planning session before the attack. Not as people, not as enemies, just as genetic material they want to add to their collection. That is our advantage. How is that an advantage? Krell asked. Because commodities have value, and valuable things can be protected or destroyed. If we threaten to destroy ourselves, truly destroy ourselves with genetic weapons that would render human DNA useless to them, then we become worthless. They would move on to other prey. You would threaten your own species' existence? Belshara asked. She had joined the meeting, having quietly defected from the majority council position. Yes, Chen said without hesitation, because the threat is what matters. The Karesh are predators, but they are also practical. They do not waste time on prey that will cost more to acquire than it is worth. We just have to prove that hunting humanity will be too expensive. The combined fleet gathered at the edge of the scorched zone. 3,000 ships from 9 different species. 8 council members plus humanity. It was the largest military force assembled in 8,000 years. Admiral Chen addressed them all via open communication. We are about to enter territory that every species has feared for millennia. We are about to attack an enemy that has never been defeated. We are doing this because we refuse to live in cages, even cages made of safety and peace. Today we remind the galaxy that some things are worth fighting for. Our freedom, our dignity, our right to exist without fear. Whatever happens in the next hours or days, know that you fought when others cowered. You stood when others knelt. That is something the Karesh cannot take from us. The fleet entered the scorched zone. The Karesh were waiting. What followed was the most brutal combat the galaxy had seen in 8,000 years. The Karesh hunter ships were fast, adaptive, and lethal, but the combined fleet fought with desperate courage. The Thren engineers used their bodies as weapons, boarding Karesh ships and detonating themselves to destroy critical systems. The Hallex coordinated attacks with quantum-linked mines, creating flight patterns that confused the enemy's targeting systems. and the humans fought with calculated fury, targeting weak points, exploiting every advantage, refusing to retreat even when every rational calculation said they should. They destroyed 3 breeding worlds before the Karish Central Fleet arrived, and at the head of that fleet was something that made even Admiral Chen pause. Was massive beyond comprehension, a creature that was ship and being at the same time. Genetic memories from 10,000 species swirled in its consciousness. It had hunted for longer than human civilization had existed. Its name was Kazeth the Rendered, and it was the apex of the Karesh. It looked at the combined fleet and felt something it had not experienced in millennia: interest. Kazeth the Rendered was 200 meters of living nightmare. Its body was part organic tissue, part mechanical systems, part something else entirely that defied classification. Genetic material from thousands of extinct species flowed through its veins. Consciousness harvested from ancient civilizations whispered in its mind. It was not simply alive. It was evolution made manifest. A creature that had consumed so much life that it had become life's ultimate expression. It observed the combined fleet with sensors that processed information across 17 different dimensions. These new prey, these humans and their allies, had done something remarkable. They had destroyed 3 breeding worlds. They had cost the Karesh resources, time, and vessels. Not many in the grand scheme of things, but more than anyone had managed in 8,000 years. Kazeth sent a communication directly into the minds of every being in the fleet. Words were unnecessary. The meaning simply appeared in their consciousness, as clear and undeniable as physical pain. You fight well, humans, but you misunderstand. We do not conquer. We perfect. You will join us or prove you were never worthy of stars. Admiral Chen felt the message like ice water in her veins. Around her, bridge crew members gasped and clutched their heads. The communication had bypassed every technological defense and spoken directly to their brains. All ships, Chen ordered, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. Maintain formation. Do not engage unless fired upon. That thing wants us to panic. Do not give it the satisfaction. But Kazeth was not finished. Another message came, this one more specific. Your species interests us, humans. You fight with creativity we have not seen in millions of cycles. Therefore, we offer you the ancient honor. Single combat. Your champion against our apex form. If you win, we retreat for 1,000 years. If we win, your species becomes part of us. Genetic material preserved forever in the Great Collection. It is a trap, Krell growled over the communication channel. The Karesh do not honor agreements. Actually, Dr. Webb's voice cut in, and they do. I have been studying the archives. The Karesh have never broken their word when it comes to combat challenges. It is part of their predator code. They are hunters, not liars. How do we know Webb is right? Chen's first officer asked. We do not, Chen replied. But what choice do we have? If we refuse, Kazeth will simply destroy the fleet here and now. If we accept, we have a chance. What chance? Velshara's voice came through, crystals resonating with stress. How can any of us defeat that thing in single combat? It has the collected genetic advantages of 10,000 species. It has fought for longer than our civilizations have existed. Chen looked at the massive creature on her view screen. Velshara was right. In any fair fight, Kazeth would win. It had evolved specifically to be unbeatable in combat. But humans had not survived by fighting fair. I accept the challenge, Chen broadcast back to Kazeth. But I choose the terms. Time and place of my selection. You agree to this or the challenge is void. There was a pause. Then Kazeth's voice returned, and if such a creature could feel amusement, this was it. Agreed. You have 3 cycles to prepare. Choose your champion. Choose your battlefield. We will be waiting. The Karesh fleet withdrew, returning to the depths of the scorched zone. The combined fleet limped back to Council space, carrying their wounded and counting their losses. They had hurt the enemy, but the cost had been enormous. Nearly 40% of the fleet had been destroyed or crippled. On Arcanus Prime, the 39 species who had voted for exile were forced to watch as the 8 who had fought returned as heroes. Public opinion across the galaxy was shifting. For 8,000 years, the Council had preached peace through submission. But these 8 species had fought and survived. They had proven that resistance was possible. It was not enough to win, but it was enough to inspire. Admiral Chen gathered her senior staff and the Allied ambassadors in a secure facility. They had 3 days to create a champion who could defeat Kazeth. 3 days to do the impossible. We need to be realistic, Chen said. No single individual can beat that thing. It is too fast, too strong, too experienced. Any champion we choose will die. Then why did you accept? Krell asked. Because dying is not the same as losing, Chen replied. We need to change what victory means in this fight. She laid out her plan. It was insane, desperate, and probably would not work. But it was the only chance they had. Dr. Webb would work with the Council's best scientists to create a neural link system, technology that allowed multiple minds to work as one. The Hallex already had something similar, but it needed to be adapted for humans and enhanced beyond anything that currently existed. They would not send one champion. They would send 100 volunteers, all connected through neural links, all piloting a single massive exoframe built from combined Council and human technology. It would not be one warrior. It would be humanity's entire approach to warfare made physical. Redundancy, adaptability, and absolute refusal to quit. If one pilot dies, the others take over, Chen explained. If one system fails, another activates. The frame will keep fighting as long as even one person is still alive and connected. We make Kazeth kill us 100 times to win. That is not single combat, Ambassador Thessa pointed out. It is one frame, one consciousness, one champion, Chen argued. The pilots are just components. Like neurons in a brain. Is a brain disqualified from single combat because it has billions of cells? The argument was thin, but they went forward with it. There was no other option. Over the next 3 days, engineers from 9 species worked without rest. They built an exoframe 30 meters tall, powered by fusion cores and wrapped in adaptive armor. It had weapons integrated into every limb, backup systems for the backup systems, and a neural interface that allowed 100 human volunteers to share control. The volunteers came from every branch of Earth's military. They knew they were unlikely to survive. The neural link was experimental, dangerous, and would likely cause permanent brain damage even if they won. But they volunteered anyway, because that was what humans did when their species needed them. Admiral Chen was supposed to be one of the 100, but the other volunteers voted her out. You need to survive, her first officer told her. Someone has to tell the story of what happened here. Someone has to lead humanity forward, whatever comes next. That cannot be us. That has to be you. Chen wanted to argue, but she knew they were right. So she stood aside and watched as 100 of her people climbed into the neural interface pods, ready to become something greater than individuals. The challenge would take place on a dead world called Threshold, exactly at the border between Council space and the Scorched Zone. Observers from all 47 Council species would watch. The Karesh would send their entire central fleet to witness. The night before the battle, Dr. Webb found Admiral Chen standing alone looking at the stars. Do you think they can win? Webb asked. No, Chen said honestly. But I think they can make Kazeth wish they had never challenged us. And sometimes that is enough. Is it worth it? 100 lives for 1,000 years of peace? 100 volunteers, Chen corrected. Giving their lives so that billions can live free from fear. So that humanity can exist in this galaxy on our own terms. Yes, Dr. Webb, it is worth it. It will always be worth it. The day of the challenge arrived. The exoframe stood on the barren surface of Threshold, pilots connected and synchronized. Across from it, Kazeth the Rendered materialized in its combat form, a nightmare of claws, armor and weapons that had destroyed civilizations. Every species in the galaxy watched. The U. Apex looked at the human creation and felt something it had not experienced in millions of years of hunting uncertainty. Then the battle began, and the galaxy held its breath. The first strike came so fast that most observers could not even see it. Kazeth moved with speed that should not have been possible for something so massive. Claws extended from limbs that seemed to shift and multiply, striking at the human exoframe from 7 different angles simultaneously. The frame reacted with inhuman precision. 100 minds working as one meant 100 different perspectives analyzing the attack. Where a single pilot would have been overwhelmed, the collective simply distributed the processing load. Block here, dodge there, counter from the third angle while preparing defense for the next attack sequence. The frame's right arm caught one of Kazeth's strikes and twisted, trying to break the limb. But the Apex's biology simply flowed around the damage, reforming and adapting in real time. Kazeth had been collecting genetic advantages for millions of years. Bones that could not break, muscles that could not tear, armor that adapted to whatever attacked it. The battle moved across the dead world's surface like a storm. Each exchange lasted fractions of a second but contained dozens of strikes, blocks, and counters. To the observers watching from orbit, it looked like two titans locked in a dance that would decide the fate of the galaxy. Inside the neural interface, the 100 pilots experienced the fight as one organism. Lieutenant Sarah Park felt her consciousness merge with 99 others. She was still herself, but she was also them. When pilot Chen Wei took damage in his neural sector, she felt it. When pilot Rodriguez executed a perfect counterstrike, she shared the satisfaction. But they also shared the pain when Kazeth began to break them. The Apex was learning. With each exchange, it adapted. It began to predict their movements, to recognize patterns in their defense. A claw strike penetrated the frame's armor, destroying 3 pilots instantly. Their neural pods went dark, their consciousness severed from the collective. 97 pilots remained. Reform pattern Delta, Sarah Park thought, and the entire collective shifted seamlessly to a new combat stance. This was their advantage, the ability to change strategy without communication, to adapt tactics as fast as thought itself. They pressed the attack, using weapons built into every limb of the frame. Plasma cutters scored wounds across Kazeth's surface. Kinetic hammers cracked armor plates. Chemical weapons tried to disrupt the Apex's biological systems, but Kazeth healed from every wound. Its body incorporated defenses against each new attack almost instantly. The frame was fighting a creature that was evolution itself, a being that had survived by consuming every adaptation the galaxy could produce. Another devastating strike. 8 more pilots died. 89 remained. On the orbital observation deck, Admiral Chen watched with her hands clenched behind her back. Every instinct screamed at her to intervene, to send the fleet down to help. But this was single combat. The rules were absolute. If she interfered, the challenge was void, and the Karesh would consider it permission to hunt humanity without restriction. Dr. Webb stood beside her, monitoring the neural link status. "They're burning out," he said quietly. "The frame is taking too much damage. The neural load is overwhelming. Even if they survive the fight, the brain damage will be catastrophic." "I know," Chen replied, her voice hollow. Below, the battle continued. The frame was slower now, movements less precise. More pilots died with each exchange, 73, 61, 52. But something strange was happening. Kazeth was also slowing down. Not from damage, its body continued to heal and adapt. It was slowing from something else. Confusion. Kazeth had fought for millions of years. It had destroyed countless species, collected genetic material from 10,000 civilizations. It understood predator and prey, hunter and hunted, strong and weak. But it did not understand this. Every being it had ever fought tried to survive. Every species had a breaking point, a moment when self-preservation overwhelmed everything else. When that moment came, the prey would try to flee, to surrender, to beg for mercy. These humans did not flee, did not surrender, did not beg. They just kept fighting. 41 pilots remained, their bodies pushed beyond every medical limit. The neural link was literally burning out their brains. Pain signals screamed through the collective consciousness. Every rational thought said to stop, to withdraw, to save what remained. But human consciousness was not entirely rational. Lieutenant Sarah Park, her neural pod smoking from overload, thought one clear message that rippled through the collective. Not yet. Not fucking yet. And 41 voices answered as one. Not yet. The frame pressed forward. It had lost its left arm entirely. Its right leg was barely functional. Armor hung in shreds. But it still fought, throwing itself at Kazeth with desperate ferocity. And for the first time in its existence, Kazeth felt something it had never experienced. Fear. Not fear of death, it was too powerful to die here. Fear of something worse. Fear of what these humans represented. Kazeth had built itself on the principle that survival was the ultimate drive. Every species it had consumed, every genetic line it had collected, all of it was based on the assumption that life seeks to preserve itself above all else. But these humans were breaking that rule. They were choosing to fight past the point of survival. They were weaponizing their own mortality, turning their deaths into attacks. And if that was possible, if intelligent beings could consciously choose to sacrifice themselves for something beyond survival, Then what did that mean for the Karesh? What did it mean for a species that had spent millions of years collecting and perfecting life? If life itself could choose to be more than just survival. The thought was poison. The thought was chaos. The thought was dangerous. Kazeth made a decision that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. It stopped fighting. The sudden cessation of combat almost broke the remaining human pilots. They had been so focused on the next strike, the next defense, that the absence of attack felt like sensory deprivation. Kazeth's voice resonated across threshold and into every mind watching from orbit. You are unsuitable for perfection. You are chaos. You are evolution moving in directions we did not know existed. To consume you would be to introduce entropy into our collection. To fight you would be to invite more of you. We withdraw our challenge. You are something else. The massive creature began to dissipate, its combat form breaking down and reforming into a less aggressive state. We will not hunt you, humans. We will not collect you. You are marked as unsuitable, but we will watch, because we do not understand what you are, and what we do not understand may yet prove to be the next step in galactic evolution. Then Kazeth was gone. Returning to the scorched zone, the remaining 13 pilots collapsed in their neural pods. Medical teams rushed to extract them. 3 died before they could be removed. The other 10 would live, but with permanent neurological damage that would require lifelong treatment. But they had done it. 13 people, out of 100 who started, had made an apex predator blink. The Karesh fleet withdrew from Council space. The hunting protocols were deactivated. After 8,000 years of fear, the galaxy was free. 5 years later, Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of a joint Human Council patrol ship. They were monitoring the border of the scorched zone, ensuring the Karesh kept to their territory, and the younger species did not do anything foolish. Dr. Webb had been right about the neural damage. Chen carried the patterns of 87 dead pilots in her mind now, a side effect of her exposure to the neural link during the final moments. Sometimes she heard their voices, their thoughts, their memories. It should have driven her insane. Instead, it reminded her why humanity fought. Not for conquest, not for glory, for the simple right to exist without fear, to choose their own path, to be free. Velshara's crystalline form appeared on the communication screen. She was now head of the Reformed Council, the organization that replaced the old system. 47 species working together not from fear but from choice. How are the patrols going? Velshara asked. Quiet, Chen replied. The Karesh are watching us, but they are not moving. I think they are still trying to understand what happened. As are we all, Velshara said. You changed the galaxy, Admiral. You proved that survival is not the only thing worth living for. That peace built on fear is not true peace. That sometimes the only way to be free is to be willing to die for it. Chen thought of the 100 volunteers, the 87 who died, the 13 who survived as fragments of themselves. It should not have required such sacrifice. Perhaps not. But it was the sacrifice you were willing to make, and that is what makes humanity both terrifying and inspiring to the rest of us. Deep in the scorched zone, Kazeth observed the humans spreading across the stars. It watched them establish colonies, make alliances, sometimes fight among themselves, but always find ways to reconcile and move forward. They were chaotic. They were unpredictable. They were everything the Karesh had spent millions of years trying to eliminate from the galaxy. And yet, watching them, Kazeth began to wonder if perhaps the Karesh had been wrong about what made a species worthy of the stars. Perhaps survival was not enough. Perhaps the galaxy needed chaos, needed unpredictability, needed species willing to die for abstract concepts like freedom and dignity.